It's been 2 weeks since I bought the iPhone 15 and it is an incredible phone, but there are a couple of things I thought were going to be great that turned out to be kind of useless. In this video, we focus on what it's actually been like to use the iPhone 15 rather than going too deep into any specifications. And by the way, this entire video is being filmed on an iPhone 15 Pro Max, for anyone who's interested. So straight off, one of the biggest changes introduced with the iPhone 15 does start to feel pointless soon after you've taken it out of its box. This year, Apple have slightly curved those edges of their phones, and if you are going caseless, this does make a very noticeable difference. However, 99% of us will probably keep this thing in a case for the entire time, so while the design upgrade is great, let's be honest, it's kind of irrelevant. Similarly, once you've got this thing in a case, you'll soon forget about that nice brushed titanium finish, which was actually one of the key selling points of the new Pro models. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of the titanium despite it being terrible with oily fingerprints, but it is just something that you forget about once you've got this thing in a case. Now one thing I do really like about the iPhone 15 is the new USB-C port. For some quick context, I've been an Android user for over 10 years and I've only really recently bought into the whole Apple ecosystem thing. If you are an Android user thinking of switching to Apple, I do reckon now's a great time to do so. You've probably got a bunch of old USB-C accessories lying around which will finally work with an iPhone. This is also good news for you long-time iPhone users. The introduction of USB-C means you now have access to a whole bunch of third-party accessories and you won't need to carry around 2 or 3 different cables just to charge all of your devices. In my opinion, the USB-C port is one of the most impactful iPhone upgrades for most people, so shout out to Apple for making the switch. I do want to talk about how this phone feels like to use on a daily basis, and the 120Hz display on this iPhone looks great and works really well with Apple's smooth operating system. Anyone upgrading from a base model iPhone to a Pro model will notice a really big difference, and it's just a lot nicer to use. However, it's definitely just a nice to have kind of thing though, so don't feel like you're missing out on too much if you are still using a 60Hz display. Speaking of displays, the iPhone 15 features some pretty thin bezels, which makes watching videos on this a much nicer experience as you can enjoy as much of that screen as possible. We do still have a small cutout for the front-facing camera, which is kind of annoying, but Apple have utilized this space to interact with apps in a bunch of different ways, and it's pretty interesting. I know a lot of people dislike the dynamic island, but I found that it displayed some pretty useful information and it just kind of helps me forget about that small section of dead space on my display. By the way, do drop this video a like if you can because it does help out a lot. The A17 chip powering the iPhone 15 also works great. I've been intentionally trying to get my phone to crash or slow down over the last 2 weeks by running a bunch of resource intensive apps, but the phone has generally handled everything I've thrown at it with minimal performance impact. If you've watched Apple's 2023 announcement event, you'll also know that iPhone 15 got some interesting game orientated upgrades. While I haven't personally tested any of the AAA games coming to the iPhone 15, this phone has no problems running the most demanding games on the App Store, even with maxed out graphics. Okay, so I personally don't take many pictures on my phone, but I have been testing the iPhone 15's camera in a bunch of different lighting conditions over the last 2 weeks. And as expected, the footage is incredible. But there is one camera upgrade that I think is completely underrated, probably because it only benefits a very small amount of users. 4K ProRes log video capture. This basically lets videographers and content creators create even better content, but it is completely useless for the vast majority of you, so I just won't talk about it. Now you've probably noticed that I've completely ignored one of the biggest changes to the iPhone 15 Pro, the action button. I have used it as a dedicated camera button over the last 2 weeks, but I just don't think it's that game changing. With features like double and triple tap, which already allow us to open up apps really quickly, I don't know, I just don't think this button was as useful as I thought it was going to be, but maybe I'm just using it wrong, so do comment down below with how you'd use the new action button. So as an average mobile phone consumer that just doesn't upgrade their phone every single year, my previous phone was a 3-year-old Samsung which didn't have the best battery. I've really appreciated that the iPhone 15 can easily last a full day of normal usage, listening to music, watching videos, using it as a mobile hotspot. It doesn't have the greatest battery, and you could go with the Pro Max if you did want to stretch it a little bit further, but the iPhone 15's fast charging capabilities and its respectable battery capacity has meant that I've been able to enjoy my phone for the last 2 weeks without having to worry about it dying too much. Anyway, those are my thoughts week 2 with the iPhone 15. I'm not going to long out this video anymore, so click here if you'd like to watch another Apple related video and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more reviews in future. Catch you in the next one.